Thank you guys for joining us for today's webinar, Beyond SmartNet, Exploring the Alternative to Cisco Network Maintenance. My name is Cody Poltrock, and I am the Production Lab and Quality Assurance Manager here at Service Express. And I've been with the company for about 10 years. We're dealing with all sorts of different products, including, in this case, Cisco.
Yeah, hi. And I'm Brandon Harmson. I'm our Network Product Engineer here at Service Express, and my role here is to help identify which Cisco equipment may be a good fit for third-party maintenance.
And before we get into the whole Cisco thing, I want to kind of talk a little bit about us here at Service Express for those of you who might be new to us. We are a leading third-party maintenance provider that specializes in data center maintenance for server, storage, and networking equipment. And what we do basically is we're here to meet the need for post-warranty support by helping IT professionals reduce costs and connect to a very user-friendly and easy to work with support. Specifically, we help you guys actually keep your equipment in the data center longer, reduce downtimes, and of course, more importantly than anything else, make sure that we're helping to save you and your IT budget money. We've been doing this for about 25 years as Service Express, and we help all sides of the business all across the entire world at this point. So before we continue on and get into the nitty-gritty, I have a quick poll that's going to pop up for you because I'm a little bit curious as to see what it is that brought you to join us for this webinar today. I'll give it just a quick 5 or 10 seconds here for you guys to be able to answer that. And there we go. So as we kind of expected, to learn a little bit more about SmartNet alternatives, but selfishly, all the things that were listed as options, we're going to talk about all those things today. So even if you didn't select one, brace yourself because here it comes. So before I turn this over to Brandon, a couple of things to cover real quick. As I mentioned prior, if you have any questions, please enter them into the chat. We'll address them as best we can as we go, but we only have a half hour of time, so we want to make sure we're mindful of that. And if we can't get to your questions, we'll contact you directly to make sure you get them answered.
My goal for today is to provide you with insights that allow for you to look at your SmartNet contracts in a different light. We believe that third-party maintenance does have a fit in over half of Cisco environments out there today. We hope to show that here. So what I want to do is start off by going to our agenda here. We're going to be covering the Cisco network lifecycle as well as milestones. This is important because the majority of your maintenance options in terms of Cisco revolve around this timeline. We do get a lot of questions around Cisco software, so we're going to be covering some of those frequently asked questions and our access to software updates. Next, we'll be covering the hybrid approach, what that means, what that looks like, and how that might be beneficial for your organization. We're also taking a look at SmartNet itself and what that has to offer, what you're used to, as well as what the alternative might have to offer. And then lastly, we'll take a look at network insights. We'll go into what it looks like from Service Express, Cisco maintenance. How do we go about those conversations and getting involved? So to get started, let's start by reviewing the Cisco network lifecycle and milestones. So some customers are more familiar than others with this Cisco timeline. So I wanted to start here because, again, as I mentioned a second ago, your maintenance options can depend on these dates combined with your specific needs. So every single device that Cisco releases does have a milestone date. These dates take effect over the life of the device from the very beginning of the release date all the way to the last day of Cisco support. So starting with the release date, the release date is simply the date that Cisco starts shipping a new device or a product into the market. Next comes the initial warranty expiration date. Typically, this is 3 or 5 years after you have purchased that switch, router, firewall, or security device, and your contract expires is up for renewal. Then typically around year 6 or 7 comes the end of software life date. This is the last date that Cisco engineering may release any final software releases or bug fixes. And after this date, Cisco is no longer developing the software. And then finally, we come to the last day of support. And I think everybody listening is probably familiar with this. Again, that's the last date that Cisco is going to be providing any type of software services, and this product becomes obsolete in Cisco's eyes. So that really brings us to a decision point here. Once your original 3 or 5 year Cisco SmartNet contract is up for expiration, option number 1 is to refresh your equipment. To be honest, it's not very common for customers to refresh their Cisco equipment after just 3 or 5 years. There's typically not a need. Performance isn't moving that quickly to really, need to replace and forklift upgrade that equipment. It's also very expensive, besides typically not necessary. In addition to that, our friends at Gartner actually say that the useful life of most network equipment is closer to that 7 to 10 year mark. Option number 2 is to renew your SmartNet contract. I call this the status quo. Reason being is that, basically the SmartNet renewal contract will come across your desk. You'll sign it if you are capable and have the ability to within your organization. Or if not, you'll pass along and ask purchasing or management to go ahead and, hey, here's our quote for SmartNet renewal. Let's go ahead and renew this because we need it. So that's typical, and that's why I call it the status quo. Many customers are just not aware of the available alternatives to SmartNet. Also, Cisco has been known to increase your annual SmartNet renewal costs as your equipment gets older down this timeline here. Your third option is to take the hybrid approach. This means that you'll have some equipment that will stay on Cisco SmartNet and other equipment that will move over to third-party maintenance such as Service Express. Good fits for third-party maintenance would include current Cisco equipment in which you're entitled to software updates without a SmartNet contract. Secondly, Cisco equipment that's close to or past its end of software life date, so those updates are no longer being developed on a specific device from Cisco. And then thirdly, of course, the easy one is end-of-life Cisco equipment that Cisco's no longer providing any type of support services for. So those are your 3 options once you reach that initial 3 or 5 year maintenance expiration date. So now that we've covered those 3 options, I'd like to turn our focus over to software. So we do get a lot of questions around Cisco software, and to start out here to set the table, I want to be very clear. No third-party maintenance company can provide Cisco software updates. The updates themselves can only come from Cisco. Now, again, we do get quite a few questions regarding software access. More times than not, we're getting these 2 questions as you see here. Question number 1, does Cisco software require a SmartNet contract? Now over the years, Cisco's taught their customer base that Cisco software is directly tied and correlated to your SmartNet contract. And for quite some time, that had been true, but that is not always the case, and that's not always true today. I don't know if you're aware or not, but there's actually several series of current Cisco switches that are entitled to software maintenance updates, as well as bug fixes without a SmartNet contract. Now, Cisco, will not probably come right out and tell you this, and again, many customers are just not aware. Second question, if Cisco is offering SmartNet, then software updates are still being developed. This is a big misconception, and again, many customers are just not aware of where their specific Cisco device falls in that timeline, and Cisco's, no longer developing software updates or releasing them. So, therefore, right now, you may be paying full price or more for Cisco SmartNet, but only paying for 2 out of the 3 components, which is, TAC or phone support and replacement parts. The third one being the updates you're not receiving anymore. So ultimately, Cisco's goal is to sell Cisco hardware and licensing, not SmartNet contracts. And this is where it's really good to engage with someone such as Service Express, who focuses on the support of your Cisco investment. So there is a need for a deeper conversation versus, simply hitting the auto renew button on your SmartNet renewal contract. So this really brings us to the hybrid approach. So really, a hybrid approach will give you the best of both Cisco SmartNet and Service Express maintenance. This approach will allow for you to make the most out of your annual Cisco maintenance spend. Many times our customers are able to reallocate the savings that we're able to provide them and allocate those towards, those dollars towards more important priorities and projects within the organization. So when we engage in a Cisco conversation, we are definitely not recommending that you move all of your equipment over to Service Express maintenance. After we review your Cisco equipment list, most likely we'll come back with some equipment that is a great fit for Service Express and other equipment that we recommend stay with Cisco SmartNet for very specific reasons. So really, we take that consultative approach to Cisco maintenance, and we'll work with you to deliver the best possible hybrid maintenance solution for your company. So let's take a look at 2 real-world examples here. So example number 1 is of a community college. Their initial challenge was very basic, and a lot of people have probably experienced this that are listening today. They had some Cisco 3750X switches in one of their many closets, and the annual SmartNet cost on these switches were continuing to increase as it waited for next year's next year's budget. So our solution, we were able to extend the life of those switches, provide some savings. We started out, the initial savings on that closet of Cisco 3750X switches was $7,500 per year, which is quite nice on a single closet of a stack of Cisco switches, right? But they allowed us to engage in a deeper conversation. During those conversations, we were better understood what they had across the rest of their Cisco environment, including what they had in their other many closets. Through those conversations, we're able to identify they had many Cisco 3850 as well as 3650 switches, and their SmartNet contract on those was set to expire next year. Those switches in particular are a great fit because they are in fact entitled to software bug fixes and updates per Cisco software policy. So again, we started out very small with annual savings of $7,500 per year, but when we add in these additional 3850s and 3650s starting in 2020, we're looking more towards that $54,000 in terms of savings. So again, we started very simple and very basic, but through having a deeper conversation, we're able to identify some additional savings for the customer. Let's take a look at a second example here. This second example is of a transportation, trucking company with several hundred locations, right? So lots of locations. Years ago, they had standardized on Cisco 2960S switches, which are end of software. So again, end of software. The software is no longer being developed from Cisco, of course, and Cisco, instead of just allowing them to renew the contracts, was really pushing quite hard for them to upgrade those switches. So outside of that initial challenge right there, the customer was consistently trying to lower costs across the board to stay competitive within the market. Also, with all these locations, each location didn't have a resident IT resource. So when an issue would arise, the IT team would have to find a spare switch and hit the road. And of course, with quite a small IT team for all these locations, it was a tough process for them to maintain. As some locations were several hours and might take a full day or more to drive there, fix the problem, and come back. So some of the benefits here, we're able to provide local expertise as well as save them quite a bit of time. Financially, we save them 68% per month, which equates to over $165,000 a year in annual savings alone on these switches. Outside of the financial impact and these great savings, they no longer had to buy and keep track of where their spare switches were located. Their time spent traveling was greatly reduced, so the team could focus on more strategic priorities. And then lastly, when that team came to work every day, there's less disruption, there's less stress. So you didn't have to worry about all of a sudden, 3 weeks from now, oh man, I gotta pick up and go travel and call my wife and family along the way and let them know that I'm gonna be late today or really late tonight and possibly miss something. So we really were able to bring that calm to that team and really take quite a bit of stress away in removing those hurdles for them. So these last two customer examples, again, were customers that were willing to have a conversation around their available options and alternatives to Cisco SmartNet. So Cody, I'm curious about what our audience is thinking right now. So how about we do a quick poll here?
Well, lucky for you, I happen to have one ready to go. There should be another poll window that's popping up. I'm asking for a little bit of interaction here. If you wouldn't mind taking a quick second to answer that, and we'll share the results here in just a second. All right, there we go. So I must be a fortune teller or something because I knew that was coming. So annual cost, yeah, absolutely. And there's a few other things, again, like before. And we're going to go ahead and kind of talk about those a little bit as well. So with the support that's included with, with Service Express or any third-party maintenance provider, what types of things might someone expect to pay more for if they were to stick with Cisco that wouldn't be included in a traditional SmartNet agreement?
Yeah, so let's start with, what's included with alternative maintenance here. So just like Cisco, alternative maintenance does include Cisco certified engineers typically. So when you call with a hardware issue or need troubleshooting assistance, you're speaking to a Cisco certified engineer. Now, some third-party maintenance companies do have these Cisco certified engineers on staff, while others may outsource this, so that's something you definitely want to check on. Hardware replacements. So in general, parts are generally available for the majority of Cisco devices, Cisco equipment, whether it be current portfolio Cisco or end-of-life Cisco. Next, with end-of-life support, unlike Cisco, most third-party maintenance companies do not have a last day of support. So I know that we have many Cisco devices under agreement with us that we're supporting today that are definitely end-of-life, and Cisco's no longer offering support services on. Significant cost savings is typically the easiest thing we do outside of our great service. When compared to annual Cisco SmartNet contracts, there can definitely be significant cost savings depending on your specific Cisco equipment and environment. So now let's see what may be included with alternative maintenance that you may pay more for with Cisco. So first off, third-party maintenance companies do in fact differ, as I mentioned a minute ago, in their service offerings, and all third-party maintenance companies are not created equal. So with that being said, here are some of the things that our customers have found value in working with us and could also benefit you potentially as well. So an on-site engineer. Cisco does charge more to provide on-site support services, and many customers would take advantage of having an additional on-site resource, if it wasn't so expensive. So that's one thing. Secondly, direct access to Cisco certified engineers. Many of our customers have voiced that it can be very time consuming when going through the tiers of Cisco support. So Service Express has identified that hurdle throughout our customer base, and we've been able to remove this hurdle by averaging a 10-minute callback from one of our Cisco certified engineers that can quickly start assisting you on your issue quite quickly. Locally stocked replacement parts. Cisco's basic service level, which is includes next business day parts delivery. You can get parts quicker, such as within 2 hours or maybe even 4 hours. But again, you're going to have to pay extra for it. A really good third-party maintenance provider will be prepared for you and will have many stocking locations in which they can deliver replacement parts within your designated SLA without the additional cost like you would get from Cisco. So.
Good, thanks for that. So with all the information that we've covered today, how will our customers or potential customers know if their Cisco equipment may be a good fit for us, and what should they do next?
Well, that's a great question, Cody. So we would obviously love to have a conversation with you about your Cisco equipment, and also, did you hear that, Cody?
I heard that, yes.
I had to be a little funny there. So, depending on your specific Cisco equipment, you may very well have an opportunity knocking at your door to lower your SmartNet costs without sacrificing the actual service that you receive for your equipment. Again, I definitely want to emphasize that we are not recommending that you move all of your equipment to Service Express maintenance. So just have confidence that will make it very easy for you to see which of your equipment may be a good fit for Service Express and which equipment we recommend stay on SmartNet. So ultimately, in the end, we want to help you meet your service needs, keep your equipment performing well, and help to remove any support challenges that you may have. So to get started, we just need a list of your Cisco equipment. Once we have that list, we'll analyze it. And through that, what we're really doing is we're going to identify all the important Cisco milestone dates, as well as Cisco software policies that affect your Cisco equipment, which in turn affects your maintenance options. So after that, we'll provide you with a color-coded list and pricing that will show you very specifically what is a good fit for Service Express or third-party maintenance, and what equipment we recommend that you stay with SmartNet. So it's really easy to read. It has 3 colors, red, yellow, and green. If your equipment is coded green, this is a great opportunity for you to lower your SmartNet costs, specifically because you have equipment that is either entitled to software updates without a SmartNet contract, it is end of software, or it's end of life. So if your equipment comes back coded as red, that's going to be some equipment that we recommend stay with SmartNet for very specific reasons. And then thirdly, if your equipment is coded as yellow, that's going to include devices in which Cisco is still in fact developing software updates for, and you very well might need a SmartNet contract. But through those conversations, there's still a decent amount of equipment that we're finding that people can do away without the updates, and they really want the savings instead. So it's definitely worth a further conversation. So really by running your list of equipment through our analyzer, this will allow for you to have all the necessary information needed to make an educated decision about your Cisco maintenance spend. So now at this time, with all that information, I'm going to turn it back over to Cody with today's recap, and of course, probably most importantly, the prizes.
I get to do all the fun stuff. So today we covered how you can look at your SmartNet contract a little bit differently than what you may have already been doing. There's a lot of it that's probably a pretty good fit for Service Express. And again, we're pretty low pressure. Send us a list. We'll go through it and kind of show you what works and what you should stick with. And Brandon has mentioned a couple times there's specific types of equipment that we do recommend stays with Cisco. And to get a little bit specific, a lot of that stuff is more security related, so something like the ASA appliances and things. because when someone stops providing updates for an ASA appliance, the people who are trying to get into them don't stop. So those are the types of devices you will want to keep with Cisco as they're continuing to develop, more security around them and ways to prevent people from getting their prying eyes on your important information. So we'll take you through that. We'll go through it. If you can provide us with a list, talk with your account executive and get that list into their hands. And again, as Brendan mentioned, we're using the hybrid approach, so you can get the best of both worlds for this. We can help with a lot of it and save you a ton of money. Cisco's great at what they do as well, and there's some stuff that you want to keep with them. And you'll get a direct on-site engineer, as he just recently mentioned. And we also stock all of your replacement parts locally based on the equipment that we sign on your maintenance agreement. So it's not arbitrarily just sent out there. This is stuff that we stock specifically based on what our customers have. And lastly, we covered our process and how we identify what equipment would be a good fit for a third-party maintenance provider, and just kind of giving you an idea of ways to save money and to be the hero for your company. So turning over to questions, there's a couple of them that came in here, and I'm going to ask them out loud. Brandon's going to go ahead and answer them. So the first one we have is, how do I know which of my Cisco devices are no longer having software updates released?
Yeah, so it sounds like we're specifically talking about the end of software life date here. Simply send us your list of Cisco equipment, and we can quite quickly and easily verify that for you and ensure that you're not paying for software that Cisco is no longer developing.
That was an easy one. Good. And how about, does Service Express provide maintenance on Cisco, this is a more specific one, on Cisco 4500 and 6500 chassis switches?
Yeah, to be honest with you, yeah, we provide maintenance on the majority of those, whether they're -R, R+Es, -Es, or the traditional regular 65 or 4500s. Actually, a large percentage of these chassis are a great fit for Service Express maintenance.
Cool. And I'm gonna go to one more here before we get to our prizes. This one is, I have CCIEs on my team, but how does Service Express handle escalations through the tiers?
Great question. So, I don't want to sound like Cisco, because Cisco has the many tiers of support, right? And that's their methodology behind it. We don't want to take you through the tiers of support. Our ultimate goal is really to tier jump you. So you place a call, and based on that severity, we're going to get you right to a tier 3 engineer that can, Cisco certified tier 3 engineer that can hit the ground running and start helping you immediately. We don't want you to call in and tell your story 3 times to people until you can finally get somebody that can assist you. We want to be very precise and get you to somebody very quickly that can start addressing your issues.
Good. And I've got one more that actually, I'm gonna steal this one from you, Brandon. Do you also provide maintenance support for Meraki firewall appliances? At this point, the answer is no, because the functionality of those devices is based on a subscription, which is a little weird. So at this point, we don't do Meraki. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us.